5 is nice Scottish is crap. And this is definitely not crap. Sheena Easton, she's Scottish, don't you know? Started a 2-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts with that one right there, Morning Train. Little piece of trivia to go along with that song, hitting number 1 44 years ago today. It was actually originally to be entitled 9 to 5, but they changed the title to Morning Train so as not to have any confusion with the Dolly Parton hit 9 to 5 that same year, back in 1981. 44 years ago this day, Sheena Easton and Morning Train at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts. It is Friday. Oh, it's a Friday. I lost track of the days. Friday, baby. Friday. The only thing that could make it better is if it was a game day, but don't worry about it. May the 2nd, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for stopping by, spending some of your valuable time with us. I hate to start with an I told you so, but I told you so. I got an email from Dean the other day. I shared with you he was out of sorts after the Leafs lost game 2 or game 5, 6, 5 in their playoff series with the Ottawa Senators. We were up 3-0. Then it was 3-2. Dean's like, look at that. They do this to us all the time. I said, Dean, don't you worry about it, because we on the Toronto Maple Leafs have the greatest hockey player in the world on our team. And that's why we can start our day with a little AM on AM in the AM.
Top of the circle, back to Matthews. Matthews with a pass and scores!
That's he dead. Austin Matthews, initials AM on AM radio in the AM. The Leafs win. Bye-bye, Ottawa. Don't let the NHL's playoff door hit your derriere on the way out. Bring on the Florida Panthers. And look at who is on the phone with me this morning. Chef D. Chef D, you know, buddy, I'm so happy to hear from you.
I guess hell has frozen over.
Where's your team these days, huh? What's going on? They got their golf clubs ready? Have they got a round or two in already? Huh?
Where's
my team? You are.
I'm a big man for this phone call today.
You are. Yeah, because last time we talked, you were picking on my Leafs and you were talking about that team.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was talking smack.
You were talking a little smack, Sheffy. That's right. And now, who has the last laugh?
Who's eating humble pie? Oh, that'd be Chef.
Yeah, but you know what? If there was a humble pie to be eaten, you'd make the best humble pie. I know you would. I know you would, buddy.
Anyways, Mike, I just wanted, I phone in when my team is doing really well, and your team's not. So I'm ready to. I'm taking my lumps today. So.
You are an honorable guy, Sheffy. Thank you. We're very excited here in Leafs land.
Well, have fun with that, and let me know how it feels.
I will. Well, you'll get there soon enough, but we're going to enjoy it on this side for a while longer.
Okay, well, have a great day, sir.
Thanks, buddy. Great to hear from you.
Talk to you.
Chef D, he's a fan of the team that shall not be named, but he's accountable. He phones up. He knows how this show works, right? Transparency, accountability, responsibility. He was tooting some horns when his team was doing okay, or my team wasn't. But he calls up and takes it back. If he dishes it out, Sheffy takes it too. Leafs win, baby. Leafs win. 1, 2, 3. How about your Farwell Show 5 for this Friday morning? Number 1, cleanup continues in Guelph. After a wicked storm back on Tuesday, the Northern Tornadoes Project says a downburst did the damage in the Royal City. Not quite a tornado, but a similar kind of storm. Downed trees, power outages, and damage to buildings in Guelph from that storm. Number 2, Waterloo Region is ready to roll out more speed cameras in 15 newly created community safety zones. Fairway, Weber, Fisher-Hallman, Maple Grove, Manser roads among the new zones being created. There's no date for the cameras to be activated, but the new 15 community safety zones will be discussed by Regional Council next week. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Ontario is reporting 223 new infections of measles over the past week, the province's highest increase since the outbreak began. That brings the total number of cases to over 1,200 since October. Number 4, Prime Minister Mark Carney expected to outline the priorities of his new government this morning and take questions from reporters. I hope one of those questions is, when are you going to balance the budget? There's a budget. You should balance it. Anyway, this media conference comes just 4 days after Canadians voted in Carney's Liberals for a 4th mandate. He has promised to move immediately to address ongoing trade tensions with the United States and spoke by phone with U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the suspect in the vehicle ramming attack that killed 11 people at a street festival in Vancouver last weekend is set to appear in court today. The 30-year-old faces 8 counts of second-degree murder after allegedly driving an SUV through a crowd of people at the Lapu Lapu Day Street Festival on Saturday, leaving 11 people dead and dozens injured. We will be discussing this tragedy and how we should respond to it with our Friday 4 roundtable today between 11 and 12. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Friday morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, a bit of a follow-up to something we talked about on Wednesday. It was about the way, the money that we have spent in making our roads safer, from posting new speed limits to putting in speed humps to redesigning roads with narrower vehicle lanes and wider bike lanes. And we're going to talk a little bit of an update to that coming up. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I can't even wait for the chorus. You got to turn that noise down. It's an all request Friday here on the show. And so if you request it, we'll play it, at least a bit of it. And depending on how much I like it, might determine how much of it we play. But you see, my buddy Mikey thought he'd be clever because earlier this week on the show, this band's name was invoked. And I expressed then my dislike for said band. So Mikey sent an email to Mike at 570news.com, said, you know what you should play on All Request Friday? You should play Bop by Hanson. And so we did, because Mike requested it. I don't know why he wanted to do that to your ears this morning, but that's Mike's choice. You can take it out on him, okay? And I'm not talking about myself in the third person. Hanson, the band's name, came up earlier this week on our regular Monday morning segment, This Week in Music History. We do it every Monday morning at 11. And we learned this week on This Week in Music History that Hanson holds the record for the loudest concert audience, reaching 140 decibels. 140 decibels of shrieking young Mbop Hanson pop fans. Anyway, Mike wanted to bring that up with us. And so he did, and he gets it on All Request Friday, and you can make your request too by dropping me an email at mike at 570news.com, or when you call in, you can just let Jen on the other side of the glass know what song you'd like to hear, and she'll make sure we play it for you. We'll get as many on as we can before the end of the day today. Also, earlier this week, I think it was also Wednesday. Well, yeah, it was Wednesday. So This Week in Music History from Monday. On Wednesday, I shared with you something that has begun to frustrate me quite a bit. And I know it's not exactly the most popular opinion, but I got to just speak my truth to you, and so I did. And what's bothered me is I see more and more of these efforts on the part of our cities to slow down vehicles on streets. And I'm not against slowing people down because we really do drive too damn fast. I get that. But I think our efforts are misguided. They're being placed in the wrong spots, if you will. Where are the high danger areas? Like, can we do some data-driven work here? Instead, what we get are these traffic calming posts on, residential streets. So it feels narrow when you're driving through, so you have to drive slower. We get these speed humps. We get these narrowed lanes for vehicles and wider lanes for bicycles and pedestrians. And it's all lovely. But the thing is, for me, what I'm starting to feel, because I see this in so many different places, is we're spending a lot of money, on all of these initiatives, and we're putting them in places where ain't nobody in danger anyway. They weren't in danger before you put the traffic calming and the bike lanes in place, and they're not going to be in danger. They're not in any less danger now because they were never in danger before. And I feel as though, like, we just do this and, oh, yeah, it feels good. Look what we're doing. But it's not the place we need to be doing it. And I really feel as though we're quite frankly whizzing away important dollars that could be allocated elsewhere. The cities are in need here. And I think we can find a better use for that money. And so no sooner did we talk about that on the show than I drove home on Wednesday, and I encountered two different things. One was a couple of older ladies out walking their dogs, and they were walking the dogs on the street, backs to the traffic, no less. But there was no sidewalk on that particular street. It's a quiet residential street. So I'm driving down said quiet residential street. I see the ladies walking their dogs. What do? I make sure I very slowly give them the widest berth I possibly can. I don't care that they're there. Where else are they going to be? And they should be able to walk out there on the road with their dog. And then I turn the corner, and you couldn't have planned it any better. There's another gentleman, and now there is a sidewalk on this quiet residential street, and he's walking his dog on the road. And what do? I make way. You know why? Because the roads are already there for everybody. Everybody. And every driver that encounters the same situation that I encountered is going to react the same way. We all do the same thing. We make sure it's safe for the other people using the road. There's no maniac driving at 100 kilometers an hour down this quiet residential street in the middle of the afternoon where people are walking their dogs and threatening their safety. It just doesn't happen. It's not. So no sooner did we talk about it than I had that happen on the way home. And it just reminded me again, the streets as they are, as we have them, are fine. If you want to look at fast-moving roads, 4-lane roads where the limit is 60, and you want to do some work there to make it safer for the people that walk or bicycle on those streets, that's fine. But you got to, like, these traffic calming initiatives in places where the traffic was already calm, that's what we call a waste of money. And you got to stop wasting our money. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I got to hand it to Jim, who clearly has fantastic taste in music. A little bit of Superconductor from the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll music. That, my friends, is Rush here on your All Request Friday on the program. Just ahead of your 9:30 update, I want to send a huge thank you this morning to Something's Always Flying, a great band here locally that could probably pull off Superconductor and more. If you need them for anything or you see them on a lineup somewhere, go and listen in. Something's Always Flying donated their time and talents to our Farwell for Hire launch party last night at the museum in downtown Kitchener, and I lost track of the number of people who said, this band is really good. They put on a great show for us. We had a great time at the museum, which also donated the venue to us so we could keep our costs eliminated. We had no costs because this was for a fundraiser, obviously. Village caterer Toby and Megan provided all of the food. It was just a great night all around to get our 2025 campaign underway. I think all of City of Kitchener Council showed up. You guys had quorum. You had quorum last night at the museum in downtown Kitchener. But we had lots of fun. So many people showed up for a great party to launch the campaign. And just wanted to send a huge thank you to so many that donated so much. Village Caterer, Something's Always Flying, the band, the museum in downtown Kitchener, and so many others that made it possible, donated some money last night and got us off to a great start. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for a great night of music and conversation and just a good old time to launch the campaign. Something else that got launched yesterday, if you want to be a part of the campaign, even if you couldn't make it to the party last night, our 50/50 raffle. Sales are open. You can go to cf5050.ca right now, buy a ticket, jackpot more than $23,000 as we speak. cf5050.ca. The update from the 570 News Center, and then tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day. Is the freedom of that press in any jeopardy? We talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Down the street with the brim pulled way down low. Ain't no sound but the sound of speed. Machine guns ready to go.
Ron wanted to hear a little bit of Queen this morning, and another one bites the dust. The interesting thing, Ron sent that request in last week. We couldn't get to all of them, so we bumped it into this week, but he wanted to send it out to the Kitchener Rangers because he said, you know what, we can do this against the London Knights. Another team will bite the dust. Unfortunately, it was the Rangers that bit that dust. But you know what we'll do today, Ron? We'll send it out to the Ottawa Senators or the Toronto Maple Leafs because now the Sens have bitten the dust. You see, all Request Friday here on the program. And thank you for being with us. Tomorrow marks World Press Freedom Day. And I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Mirko Petricevic, who's the chief instigator, if you will, and coordinator with Ink Stained Wretches here in the region. Always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for stopping by.
Likewise, Mike. Thanks a lot for having me on the show again.
Well, let's back up half a step.
Sure.
Ink-Stained Wretches. You've been at this for a number of years now.
Since early 2020.
There you go. So 5 years with former colleagues of yours in the media industry. How did why did you start Ink-Stained Wretches?
Well, we started, it was about half a dozen of us, former workers at the Record, newsroom workers, graphic artists, editors, reporters. And we started when the pandemic lockdown went into effect in early 2020. And we thought we've got to be able to do something to, we knew it was going to be a bad time for newspapers and for journalism in general. And that's true. That's what happened was advertising just sort of got cut off. A lot of people got laid off. We knew it was going to be a bad time. And then actually it was Waterloo Mayor Dave Jaworski. I saw a text or a tweet. He retweeted another reporter's tweet, and this reporter was from Colorado, and she was laid off, and she was talking about the layoffs because of the pandemic lockdowns. And Dave Jaworski retweeted and said, support your local media. And I thought, wow, I've never seen that. In 30 years of working, in almost 30 years of working in journalism here in the region, I'd never seen a local politician say, support your local media. Now, it may have happened, I just hadn't seen it. So I thought there's got to be a little window here of opportunity to get mayors, councils on board to voice support for local journalism and professional journalism. So what we did was in we launched a campaign. A bunch of us got together. We launched a campaign to ask municipalities, regional municipalities here, to voice support for journalism. Now, Region of Waterloo was the first council to pass that, and then all the councils in the region passed that. And within 2 years, we went right across the country from Vancouver to St. John's, Toronto, Montreal. We had 29 municipalities voicing support for local journalism, and that was home to more than 11 million Canadians.
You talk about those colleagues of yours with what is now known as the Waterloo Region Record, the KW Record, back when you were there. But look at how the landscape has shifted, Mirko. I mean, that journalist in Colorado, certainly not the only one laid off. Maybe at that time when we saw more layoffs, but newsrooms are not what they used to be. No,
the decline has been happening since 2008. Actually, it goes farther before the pandemic lockdowns. So from 2008, there's been about 525 news outlets in Canada across the board, whether it's radio, TV stations, newspapers, mostly community newspapers, though. 525 have either closed or merged. And the newsrooms that have survived are greatly diminished. I mean, where I worked at the Record for 28 years, that newsroom is greatly diminished from what it was in the past when I was there. Still doing great work. As this week it was honored by World Press Freedom Canada for local journalism and other awards that they've had, national awards that they've been nominated for this year. So they're doing great work. But again, the capacity to serve the community is greatly diminished across the country.
A friend of mine in Guelph who used to work with the Mercury, I saw a post the other day on social media that following an election or on an election night is when he misses, because he's no longer in media,
right.
Is when he misses media the most. Right. But then he also commented that given the state of newsrooms today, the vibe or energy on an election night probably isn't the same. Some people probably even do their work from home.
I would think so. I think a lot of the work is being done remotely. You know, that newsroom camaraderie that was a thing these bygone days, I think, in many places. So what do you reflect on, Mirko, as we look ahead to World Press Freedom Day tomorrow? Well, as bad as the news is, I think we have to look at some of the positives, and there are positives that can be built on as well. I mean, we hear about trust in news has gone down; it's an all-time low. Blah blah blah. What we don't hear is the greatly unreported news that, whereas in Canada, let's say 39%, there's a 39% trust rating in media. If you drill down a little more into the specifics. City News has a 59% rating of trust. The local newspapers, regional newspapers, they're into 65. When you're going into CBC, it'll have even higher levels, and especially in Quebec with Radio Canada. So, I mean, the news is bad. It's been going downhill for a while, but it's also has to be looked at it in a greater context, cultural context. Trust is down in all sorts of, in government, in business, in the church, you know. So this is a societal trend, right? But we also have to drill down and look a little further at there is trust there, and especially in local journalism. Mirko Petricevic is the chief instigator coordinator with Ink Stained Wretches, joins us on the show this morning to talk about World Press Freedom Day, which is tomorrow. There are other challenges for those of us in the media to overcome. We'll continue the conversation with Mirko here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. Stay with us, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Mirko Petricevic with Ink Stained Wretches locally. 5 years now, Mirko and some of his former colleagues with the Waterloo Region Record have been working on getting local journalism on the map. Municipalities across this country and really around the world now are adopting this idea of let's support local journalism. And speaking of around the world, Mirko, I look to the United States specifically because really it was the first Donald Trump era back in 2016 where this whole idea of fake news came around. And I know some would have
felt that what they're getting is not accurate or somehow it's too biased, they're not getting the full story, etc. But when you have a leader, the President of the United States, using language like that, it's pretty damaging stuff.
Yeah, the rhetoric is pretty strong. And that's where it all starts, that kind of rhetoric, that kind of mischaracterizations. I mean, I know that, news outlets make mistakes. I mean, they cover a lot of information, right? So they're bound to make mistakes. If they have good journalistic practice, they're going to correct those, right? But I think it's very easy to let your emotions get carried away with you. And, okay, gut feeling, the fake news. But what I'd hope is that people would take a second and just sort of be specific, be accurate, give the media, or be specific about, if you think something's wrong, say, okay, well, is it in this paper? Is it in one specific journalist or whatever? But to characterize a whole sector, I don't think is fair. Basically, if you're in any sector, if you're a plumber, let's say you're a plumber, and all of a sudden people are saying, well, those plumbers, they all just put in, set things up so there's a leak, down the road so they can give their carpenter buddy a little bit of extra work fixing, some damaged flooring or whatever. I mean, that's absurd, So I think that criticism of news media and journalism is fair, but let's try to make sure that it's fair, because that rhetoric can spin out of control.
The electronic media has really changed the landscape as well, primarily when it comes to advertising dollars.
Right. Yeah, it's really sucked the advertising dollars out of the legacy traditional media. It's gone online. It's gone to Google and Meta products. Thing is that they're also protected by an American law, Section 230, which basically says that the platform is not liable for what is produced on the platform in most cases. So, newspaper, radio, city news, you're liable for, what I'm saying. If you're broadcasting that, you can be sued. Well, Meta can't be sued for that. Individuals can be. So they're not working with the same constraints, right? But they're looking for the same pool of ad dollars, and they've been able to successfully vacuum that up. And so it's hollowed out newsrooms in Canada.
Some will say, Mirko, that this is just the market determining where the advertising dollars go, and maybe traditional media was slow to pivot. I don't know fully about that, but what's the impact in a community like Waterloo Region when you see these ad dollars being sucked away by big online platforms and leaving newsrooms a skeleton of their former selves? Well,
I think you yourself were in the same position a number of years ago. You go to a city council meeting and there would be a number of reporters there. Now, how many reporters are covering council? Very few, right? Yeah. And if they're doing it, often they're doing it remotely. So I think in which you're not able to ask follow-up questions and buttonhole elected leaders if you're not in the room with them at the time. So basically, as I said, the capacity has been reduced. I mean, when the newsroom was at full strength back, in the 80s and 90s, you would have 3 education reporters, one for each board and post-secondary. You would have a health reporter, a social service reporter. So all of those sectors aren't being watched anymore the way that they used to be. So that the loss of ad dollars is basically reducing the capacity to serve the community.
Yeah, and which makes it all the more poignant that it was a tweet from former Waterloo Mayor Dave Jaworski to support local journalism, because if I'm a municipal councillor or mayor, I'm like, this is great. Nobody's here watching what we're doing.
Yeah. But what's happening over the years, though, that councillors are also understanding what they've lost. Because you'll have communities, across Canada. In some communities, you'll have no newspaper. Many communities will have no newspaper anymore. So it's left up to rumor online. Rumors will spread online instead of official sources getting the message out. The Ontario Small Urban Municipalities Association last year held a panel discussion on reviving local news, which was, I thought was just amazing. That, again, they've come to the point that they've realized we need to revive local news and support local news somehow. So I spoke to a couple of the panelists, and what came out of that, I asked them, how was it received? How was the message received? And they said, well, it seemed like the delegates left the room without knowing what to do. So, Inkstay and Wretches, we compiled basically a toolkit for municipal leaders. It has more than a dozen ideas of what municipal leaders can do, elected and admin, what they can do to support local news, all towards the goal of having a healthy democracy.
How do we mark World Press Freedom Day tomorrow? Will there be anything visual that we'll be able to notice?
Yeah, in Kitchener and Waterloo for sure. I'm looking at a great photo on your wall here of Kitchener City Hall. Tomorrow night, City Hall will be lit blue, which is a United Nations color, because World Press Freedom Day is a UN proclamation. And in Waterloo, there's Uptown Waterloo. There are fancy lights. Street lights will be lit blue and white. They're animated, so we've got a couple of colors going there. That's locally here, but also around the world. We have participants from far western Australia to Geneva, Switzerland. We have over 30 participants that are lighting bridges. Closer to home, we've got Niagara Falls will be lit blue, CN Tower, the big Toronto sign in Nathan Phillips Square. We have 4 provincial legislature grounds or buildings that will be lit as well in BC, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and PEI. So this is a way that our campaign is called Spotlight Press Freedom Campaign. We're trying to spotlight press freedom. We're asking municipalities to put a spotlight on press freedom either through lighting City Hall, proclamations, or raise a UN flag. So that's happening tomorrow. It's
important work, and really appreciate that you're doing it and your colleagues, and that you made time for the show this morning, Mirko. Thanks for being here.
Mike, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your time, and good luck with Farwell for Hire. I'm going out to get my tickets now.
CF5050.ca, you're in. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.
Mirko Petricevic joins us from Ink-Stained Wretches. Tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Bob wanted to hear some Spencer Davis Group this morning. I'm here for it, Bob. I am here for it. A little bit of Gimme Some Lovin' just ahead of our 10 a.m. update in the 570 News Center. Let's go to the phones, hear from you this morning. Ibrahim, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Just for a quick comment on that topic, and I have a question quickly. First, of course, I'm not really a supporter of traditional media because this is a real information you get, the source and everything. You get, when I see all news, in Google and stuff, even I wait what's the news in 570 News, mostly still, traditional, real news we got. So my question to you last time, you were talking about Donald Trump, of course, he doesn't like the media, especially traditional media who are telling the truth. But the last time when, last year or the beginning of this year, the conservative leader, he said if he wins, he will cut fund for the CBC. Even though the poll show even 68%, I think, of that conservative supporter, even they supported CBC fund to continue. So what is there anything that related to ideological or just they don't? I don't know. This is broadcast. The CBC, of course, funded by taxpayers' money.
Yeah. Thanks for the question and the call, Ibrahim. In short, because we're running out of time, but I think there's room to finesse the budget, shall we say, at CBC. But I do believe that a national news network that serves every corner of this country is important. But I think there's some budget excess that we could certainly take a closer look at. And maybe that's a longer discussion for another day. Bottom line is support your local media outlets. And I know I'm saying that unashamedly here because I work for one. But please subscribe to a newspaper, follow along with local, reliable, vetted news from news professionals. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Before he was Kim Mitchell, he rocked out as Max Webster. A little high class in borrowed shoes. Oh, me likey a lot. Mark, thank you for the request on this All Request Friday here on the program. Drop me an email, mike@570news.com, or when you call in to talk about the issues we discuss on the show, you can always just let Jen know. Jen's on the other side of the glass. Say, I would like to hear this song, please, on All Request Friday. We'll make it happen for you. A little bit of your favorite song, as many as we can fit before the show is done today at 1. High class, borrowed shoes, Max Webster for Mark on this All Request Friday. Looking ahead, 24 hours. We just did that. World Press Freedom Day is tomorrow. Also tomorrow, Healthy Heart Day, an initiative sparked by a cardiologist in Cambridge who would like to turn Cambridge and the rest of Waterloo region and even Wellington into a blue zone. The heck is a blue zone? We're going to find out in this conversation with Dr. Shekhar Pandey, who joins the program. And maybe we can just take a step back on this, Dr. Pandey, as we get the conversation underway, because I know you started this some time ago. But what is it that makes you so passionate about heart health?
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for speaking with me and for allowing me to get the word out. You're exactly right. This is our 21st annual Healthy Heart Day. And the purpose of this over those 21 years is to really try to empower our community, not just Cambridge, but the Waterloo-Wellington region. And more broadly, now that the event is online and people can log in, we have participants from across the province and really across the country. And last year's event, we had people logging in from other parts of the world, from Australia and Hong Kong and other places, Europe. The purpose is to really provide a venue in which people can have reliable resources, empowering people, the general community, to lead a healthier, heart-healthy life. And as you know, Mike, heart disease remains the number one killer cause of death and disability across the planet. And, that's really a tragedy that so many of our community members end up with a disease that the stats and the data show that, as much as 85-90% of it could potentially be prevented. And a lot of that is about getting people the information, reliable resources of things that they can do early so that they can make lifelong changes. But also as we get older, even if we develop the disease, the data shows that heart disease, you can potentially prevent its progression. And newer data shows that if we're really aggressive about it, adopt a number of changes, in some people you can actually even reverse disease. So we're in an era in which, science and cardiovascular medicine has made huge progress, but some of that has not been implemented as effectively. And so it's really about empowering our community. And, it started 21 years ago, really as a reflection of a personal loss for me and my wife and our family. We lost my mother-in-law, we affectionately call Grandma Linda, 21 years ago to the ravages of heart disease and diabetes at a very young age. She was under 70. And when she was first diagnosed with the heart disease, the same day she was diagnosed with diabetes and high cholesterol. But we know that those things had probably existed for a number of years. She was actually a nurse in GTA in downtown Toronto. And so the idea that, a cardiologist, mother-in-law, my wife is a pharmacist and researcher, and my mother-in-law was a nurse, somebody in the healthcare system with so much resources didn't have the resources available to her to get early diagnosis and make personal changes and empower her to really try to thwart her disease. It really kind of shook us up, and it really made my wife and I both say that there are resources lacking. We have to do something for our community so that we can empower people, so that other people hopefully don't face some of the tragedies that we faced. So that kind of led us to develop this event.
You have expressed a belief that our region could become a blue zone when it comes to heart healthiness. What is a blue zone, and what makes you think we can get there?
So blue zones, it's a really unique set of communities around the world. There are 6 of them in different parts of the world, and they're in California and Japan, parts of Europe, and they're areas where people live longer. Often they live well into their 90s. Some people live past 100. But not only do they live longer, they live very healthy lives. Unfortunately, in our communities, sometimes as people age, even though people are living longer in our region, often in the last number of years, they're disabled, they're housebound, they're sometimes institutionalized, and the last number of years are really sometimes very sick, and they're not able to be engaged in their communities, not able to do the things that they really wanted to do in those golden years because of chronic illnesses. And these zones are areas where there's a lot lower rates of those. So a lot of research has gone in to try to figure out what's unique about them. And, it doesn't turn out that there's anything magically unique about them. They're not genetics is not particularly different. They're diverse people. It's really a lot of things that those communities do that I think we can do. These are people that live their lives very engaged. They're very actively involved in their communities throughout their life. They, are physically active, but not by necessarily going to a gym. They just do things around their community. They're engaged with other people. They continue to volunteer and continue to stay socially engaged, so depression rates are lower and mental health rates are lower. They just also eat whole foods. They eat very low rates of processed foods, and they eat whole fruits and vegetables, and so it's about giving people resources, I think. If these communities that are across the world can be like that, why can we not be like that as a region, that we empower our community to, be more involved, be more physically involved in the community, more emotionally involved, all of us be connected socially so that, we're not facing isolation, which can be such a problem as we age. And then, giving people resources. How do you eat healthy? How do you eat naturally? How do you avoid some of the toxins that are in the food chain? How do you stay physically active as you get older? And so that's the theme of our event this year, is to talk about healthy aging. Not only do I and healthcare providers want people to live longer, but we want them to live healthier as we age. And there's actually data that one of our presenters, Dr. Reichard, will present that as we age, we can actually potentially reverse some of the chronic illnesses that we develop as we age through changes. So even if people are older and they're in their older years, it doesn't mean that the chronic illnesses that they may have started to develop are permanent. You may be able to start controlling it and reversing it. So it's really about, I think, it's a challenge that I pose to our community. Can we become a blue zone? I think we can, and I think it requires community engagement, and we need people like you to get the word out to our community that, we can be one of the blue zones. And I think that would be amazing if the Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, Wellington region was declared a blue zone. I think it would really be a reflection of just how exceptional a community we are.
We're in conversation this morning with Dr. Shekhar Pandey, who's a cardiologist in Cambridge. This is Healthy Heart Day, and you get a chance to be involved in this. We'll learn more about how you can get involved and what you will learn as we continue the Mike Farwell Show this morning. Stay with us, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's an event now into its 21st year, thanks to Dr. Shakar Pandey, a cardiologist in Cambridge, who is with us on the program this morning. So inspiring, Dr. Pandey. You talk about your belief that we can become one of these international blue zones for healthy hearts, longer living, better quality of life later in life. What sorts of things will we be able to learn and take part in during Healthy Heart Day today?
So, this is going to be a really fun event. It's an event that we want people to be engaged with. It's not just sitting and watching, and there will be sessions throughout where, one of our exercise physiologists will be doing practical exercises with people that they can do in their homes. You don't have to do these exercises. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money. It's about things that you can incorporate into your daily life. And she's going to work with us on that, Cindy Catton. She's been in Healthy Heart Day events in the past, and she's had exceptional success trying to empower people. Dr. Peter Lynn will be discussing the blue zones that we talked about, Mike, and he's going to talk about some of the science of living longer. What can people do so that they, live healthier into their golden years? And Dr. Reichart will be also presenting, and she's going to be talking about as we get older, chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart disease start to develop. Is there ways that you can potentially stop that development and maybe even reverse it as you get older? Can you actually get healthier as you age? And she's going to talk about exciting ways that we can do that. Then subsequently, we will have a presenter who's going to talk about as we age and we want to make these changes. We're asking people to do a lot of things. And how do you stay motivated to do that? We all know, Mike, January 1st comes along and you make a resolution, I'm going to do this, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to, lose 20 pounds or something, whatever it is. And then you do that for a few weeks. And February, March, and the end of March, many of us have kind of either forgotten, life gets busy, and then you kind of lose that resolution. And so the goal will be to say, okay, let's make these changes, but how do you commit to that? How do you stay emotionally engaged so that April, May, November comes along and you're still doing what you committed to do? And so practical ways to try to maintain that motivation, because it is about being motivated as a community to become one of these blue zones. And the final session of the day will be, I'm going to try to put it together in a concept called lifestyle medicine. And, this is a concept that's, starting to develop in medicine, that our lifestyle can actually be a therapeutic thing. It can be an intervention, just like, when I'm in the cath lab and I'm trying to open up somebody's blocked up arteries with stents, or I'm giving people specific medications. Can lifestyle be one of those interventions that, healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, can we empower people through our lifestyle to actually be a therapeutic thing? So I will try to put it all together at the end of our day into a package as to, these are goals that I would like our community to strive to, because I really do believe, Mike, that if we empower our fellow citizens to make these changes, to commit to them, and we all work together, I think it'd be exceptional that we make these incredible community changes that down the road, a few years from now, people look back and say, okay, Wellington region, Cambridge did all these things, and they've achieved exceptional outcomes. I think we can become a blue zone, but it's about really making that community commitment and getting the word out to people that some of this stuff is things our grandparents, our great grandparents just took for granted. They ate healthier because they weren't eating all these processed things. They exercised not to join through a gym, but because they were doing physical activity as part of life. And can we get back to some of those basic things that can keep us healthier as we age?
How, Dr. Pandey, can we get involved? Where can we sign on to these virtual seminars today?
So it will be on Rogers TV 20 on May 3rd from 9 a.m. On in the morning. It'll be rebroadcast over the weekend, but people can log on through CambridgeCardiacCare.com, and there's a link to Healthy Heart Day, so they can watch it from the comfort of their home from any device. And then it will be archived on CambridgeCardiacCare.com, so if people weren't able to join during the live broadcast, they can certainly view that, or if they want to go back and see certain sections, it'll be accessible to people. And we would like people's input, so if people can email us back, one to register, and even their feedback is important to us. So emailing at healthyheartday@rogers.com. Healthyheartday@rogers.com will allow us to sort of get the feedback from our community. Did we present this right? Did we get the information to you? Were there things that we could do better for our next year's event? And this is our 21st annual, but I'm hoping we continue this into the future with our community engaged, with partners like Rogers, and with the radio station helping us to get the word out. I think this is going to be something we'll look back at as a community. We did the right things.
It is inspiring to listen to your story, and you make it sound very possible, and I think we can all get behind an idea like this. Dr. Pandy, thank you very much for joining our show today.
Thank you so much, Mike, and I really appreciate you taking the time and your listeners giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this.
Dr. Shekhar Pandy, he is a cardiologist in Cambridge. Tomorrow marks the 21st annual Healthy Heart Day for our region. You can check it out on Rogers TV, Cable 20. Feel empowered. Be inspired. Just imagine reversing some of those illnesses and diseases we develop through our life just by maintaining a healthy heart. Let's become a blue zone. Like I said, an idea I can definitely get behind. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send. Beauty I'd always.
Steve G wanted to hear a little bit of the Moody Blues this Friday morning, All Request Friday. And of course, this is Nights in White Satin. You can make your request on an All Request Friday by sending me an email, mike@570news.com. Or when you call in to talk to us on the show, just let Jen on the other side of the glass know what song you'd like to hear. We'll play as many as we can before the day is done at 1. That will be the end of, by the way, Free Phones Friday between noon and 1 today. Always a popular feature where you phone in and start the conversation. I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then, in keeping with tradition, we do it throughout the hockey season. And the Rangers hockey season just came to its end. But one more time, reflecting on the season that was and now what's to come. How about the weight of expectations for the Kitchener Rangers next year and probably beyond? Head coach Jussi Ahokas and the other coach, Paul Fixter, will join our next 30 minutes here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. Stay with us on 570 News Radio. Just remember, just take a moment and let it sink in. The feeling that you had when you heard that sound at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium on Wednesday night. It was just over 2 minutes into the game, and playoff performer Luke Ellenis, this guy is money in the playoffs, and Ellenis scored a power play goal for the Rangers, giving Kitchener the lead versus London in that do or die, you gotta win or your season is over, Game 4. And the Rangers had their first lead of the series. But that lead, unfortunately, lasted only 56 seconds. Noah Reid of the London Knights would tie the game 1-1, and then before the end of the first, the Knights scored again. They were up 2-1, and they never looked back. They did not trail again for another moment in that playoff series with the Rangers. And in fact, they have trailed for less than 80 minutes. 80 minutes of hockey in these playoffs, the London Knights have, in all of the 12 games that they've played. So just let that sink in. You're talking more than 720 minutes of hockey played, and they have trailed for less than 80 in all of those games so far. The London Knights have gotten off to a 12-0 start in the playoffs, and the Kitchener Rangers were eliminated with that loss. 4-2 was the final on Wednesday night. Rangers pulled their goalie late and got an extra goal. They were down 4-1 at the time. They made it 4-2. That's as close as they would get. This is the time we set aside for one more coach's show with the head coach of the Kitchener Rangers, UC Ahokas. And we had a chance to chat after the game on Wednesday night. And I reminded him that we'd be doing it one more time, but he is busy with exit meetings this morning. These are the meetings that the coaches have with the players so that they can tell the players, hey, they talk about the season that it's been, what they have seen from those players that are positive signs, and then what the players need to work on in the offseason to come back. This is the big question I have for the Kitchener Rangers now. What is next season going to be like with the weight of expectations? That is going to be much different because these last 2 years, really, it feels as though we've been playing with house money insofar as neither last year nor this did we expect the Rangers to perform the way that they did. And yet, this year they went out, won 47 games, put up 100 points, and now more will be expected next year, especially when you look around the Ontario Hockey League and how other teams, London is a stacked team this year, but they'll lose players, take a step back next year. So what does London look like a year from now? Windsor's getting better, but Kitchener's getting better. It's going to be great. And again, the weight of expectations for the team for next season. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond with that weight of expectations on their shoulders. Now that the Rangers are out and London has moved on, they will play the Oshawa Generals in the OHL final. It's the same final that we had a year ago, a rematch of the 2024 OHL final. Oshawa also getting there with a sweep over the Barrie Colts. And here's a little tidbit of trivia for you. The London Knights, with their third straight Western Conference championship, back to back to back, set a record. No team has done that before. The Oshawa Generals, back to back Eastern Conference championships. Nobody has done that before. So a couple of record setters in the OHL final. As Rangers head coach UC Ahokas joins us for the Coach's Show. UC, good morning.
No, it's not UC. I called in. I said,
oh my gosh.
I will step in for UC if you want. So, Jen on the other side, maybe I didn't say it properly, sorry, but I said I would step in if you needed me.
Oh, Fixie, what a guy. You are not UC Ahokas. You are Paul Fixter, the other coach.
No, I'm not doing any exit meetings at this juncture.
You know what? Since you brought that up, take us through that process, Fixie, because you've been through a few of those before.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mike. They're all kind of different. Some exit meetings, players are upset. I didn't play enough. I could have done more. You didn't use me enough. Others are appreciative for the opportunity. Each one is kind of, they're not all fun. I'll say that. Players see writing on the wall. They've been scratched maybe in the playoffs, and geez, how come I got scratched? And it's really an opportunity to vent on both sides, I guess, and or praise one another, for the effort you've done this year. So they're quite interesting. And I think the purpose of them is to send the player, the individual, off with a message on their season and I guess how they can be better, because that's the one thing that UC preaches is we need to be better.
Absolutely. And, something you said there, Paul, really strikes me because the reality is, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody here, but the reality is the Kitchener Rangers are returning so many players that there won't be room on next year's roster for all of them. So some of these meetings will be difficult ones, I would think.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. And players aren't stupid. They see the writing on the wall, and they know the depth charts. Kitchener had at points this year, 6, 7, 8 players sitting out. So, and they had some good prospects playing in Junior B that have gotten seasoned. Weston Cameron, Avery Ansis, Caden Schneider. And there's a whole new draft class coming in.
Oh yeah, that.
It's competition is a good thing, and there'll be certainly come training camp time. There'll be some good competition for positions on this club.
All right, Fixie, hang in there. We got some bonus time with you, but we'll take the break and come back with more, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks, buddy. Paul Fixter. I'll tell you what, in this life, find yourself a good teammate. Holy Hannah, is this guy a great teammate. All through the season as a broadcast partner, and he's like, Farwell doesn't have UC on the phone this morning. I'm going to call in and support. That's a teammate right there. The Other Coaches Show, more with Paul Fixter coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
She don't like her eggs all runny. She thinks crossing her legs is funny. She looks down her nose at money. She gets it on like the Easter bunny. She's my baby, I'm her honey. I'm never gonna let her go.
I'm going to let John Prine go on that note right there. It's called In Spite of Ourselves, and it's by request for Suzanne, who apparently likes her honky-tonk. My goodness gracious, we're digging deep into the country and western twang with that one on our All Request Friday here on the program. Just to go back to the previous segment, mentioning how the Kitchener Rangers took the lead on London in their final game on Wednesday and had their first lead of the series that lasted a whole 56 seconds. The entirety of these playoffs so far, the Knights have gone to overtime once in their first 12 games. So they've played 726 minutes and 49 seconds. 649 of overtime, 720 minutes, 12 periods times 60 minutes. And in those 726 minutes and 49 seconds of playoff hockey, the Knights have trailed for less than 31 minutes. Pretty dominant for the Knights as they face Oshawa in the OHL final. Paul Fixter, the other coach, joins me and continues the conversation about the season that was for these Kitchener Rangers. One of the big questions I have, Fixie, is what now? How does this team respond next year to being a team with expectations on its shoulders this time?
Well, huge expectations, Mike, getting to the Western Conference Final and the build towards what everybody is anticipating, 27, and, potentially hosting the Memorial Cup. And if not hosting it, at least being there, winning the league championship and getting to the Memorial Cup, wherever it will be held in, one of these Ontario Hockey League cities. So huge expectations. I mean, there are some questions. Is Jason Schaubel able to step up and do what Jackson Parsons did? And if not, who replaces Jackson Parsons? That's a big departure from this hockey club. He's a big reason that we had 47 wins and 100 points, and the success that we had getting past a tough Flint team, an extremely tough Windsor team, and then playing decently well against London. Certainly the last two games, first two games not so much. And I think what we have to keep in mind too, Mike, is and you and I had the good fortune of meeting with the coaches post game Wednesday night after the series ended, and had a beer with them, and the Rangers were suffering injury-wise much more than anybody let on.
When we look back at this season that's finished, Paul, and it always sucks when it comes to an end, to be blunt, but I get the sense that there is a real sense of satisfaction with the way this season went down, from the fans right on through the organization. What's your take?
Oh, I think so. You and I and Josh Brown, we spoke often, and we said, throughout the season, boy, if this team can get to the Western Conference Final, that's a heck of an accomplishment. Well, we got to the Western Conference Final. None of us said, and win it. We just didn't get there. So I think this team really delivered. It sucks. People hate losing. Again, it's London. All those things keep coming up. When are we going to beat London? How are we going to beat London? But I think we have to look at big picture, and big picture is it's a heck of a season. We were entertained each and every night. The team always gave it an effort, right? Like even in losses, and there weren't that many losses, the team gave an effort. That's what's expected. They were entertained. You go, you buy your ticket, you go to the games to be entertained, and I believe this team entertained for the most part. And you're right, it does suck losing, but I think there's a lot to build on. And with this staff, they will get at building a better season next year. You know how hard they work, and they have expectations on themselves as well.
You talked about building towards that championship 2027, and whether it's the Memorial Cup, it's the OHL championship to get there, etc. This is number 8, Fixie. Number 8 for the London Knights since they won their first OHL championship in 2005.
Yeah, you threw out a really good stat the other day when you said since 2005 they had been there 7 times and won 5 of them. Now they'll be there 8 times, and I believe they will win their 6th. I love that Oshawa Hockey Club. I don't think they're strong enough to beat London, and I think London, anything other than a Memorial Cup season is disappointing for them this year.
8 of 19, this becomes OHL finals have featured the London Knights, almost half. I mean, spread the love around to the rest of the league, guys.
Yeah, it's an incredible stat, and you know, I know a lot of people don't like Dale Hunter, Mark Hunter, the London Knights, but you have to appreciate and acknowledge the success they've had and the just the program that they've delivered. And people are going to say, oh, they cheat and all this and that. People are entitled to their opinions. I know one thing. They also work very hard at their craft.
No question about it. As do you, sir. It was great to see you last night for some bonus time at the Farwell for Hire party.
I really enjoyed that. And I heard you talking earlier this morning about the music that was supplied the band. They were fantastic. Like, absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. As everything was, but the music was great. And it was nice to kick off the campaign. And I guess the season ends. That means Mike keeps working even harder.
One season ends, another season begins for me. Something's Always Flying was the name of that band. I told you earlier, and now Fixie's backing it up. They really were great for our party last night. I guess now, Paul, you have time to get on the golf course. Like, let's go. You've played one round already?
I've played one round. I was scheduled to play yesterday, but the weather didn't cooperate, and today's a little cool. We need some warmer weather. Get your meteorologist there to do something and get the weather warmed up a little bit. But Mike, the last thing I'd like to mention, and we weren't able to. Dave Schneider wasn't able to get it out. I think the 3 stars the other night was good recognition for the players that were recognized. Jackson Parsons being number 1, Trent Swick being number 2, and Adrian Missile-Jevic, if he had played, would have been number 3, but he didn't. So it was given to Jakob Chromiak. I think good recognition of those 3, and Jakob is eligible to come back. The other 3 aren't eligible to come back. We wish them well on their trails to bigger things beyond the OHL. Yeah,
I know some of the London media was a little critical, but we did what we did with intent. What the heck? It's the final game of the season. Recognize the overagers so they can have one more loop out and salute the fans. So, yes, Parsons, Swick, and then without Missile-Jevic, Chromiak got a star. And I'll stand by those any day, Fixie.
Absolutely. We're allowed to be homer once a year, aren't we?
Absolutely, yes.
We were.
All right. Get out and enjoy your summer. I won't bug you a whole lot more. Maybe we'll have a beer or 2 along the way, and we'll get ready for the next season and all the expectations that come with it.
Well, we have to have that beer at some point with Avery, the bagged referee.
That's right. Okay, there you go. We've got at least that one scheduled. Thanks, Fix.
All right. Enjoy your motorcycle. I'm on the course.
You got it. I will do that. Take care.
Yep, I know.
Paul Fixter, the other coach, our color commentator with Kitchener Rangers hockey. I'll tell you what, this guy has just been such a find for our radio station and our broadcasts. He brings the fixes in for City Cabs, and we have some fun with that during our Harris Law pregame show, asking Fixie some questions. Is he in? Is he out on this, that, or the other thing happening during the game? And then he comes up with this other idea about long-distance listeners. Hey, I wonder where people are listening from. So we start doing that during our games. Hey, checking in with our long-distance listeners. Paul and I are here in the David Schooley broadcast booth, but where are you? And I'll tell you what, emails coming in from literally around the world, Australia, cruise ships in the Pacific, across the country. We got Whistler, so we had British Columbia, we had Calgary regularly, we had Winnipeg regularly. I guess we missed out on Saskatchewan. I'm not sure we had anybody from Saskatchewan at any time. But either way, we all kinds of long-distance listeners. It was Fixie's idea. We have so much fun with it on the broadcast, and it's nice. It's like a nice little, it's a large Rangers family that we get to share every game with when we're in the broadcast booth. Lots of fun. Yes, another season is done, but I can't wait to get back and start another season again. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the end of a week that featured a federal election. Remember Monday when we went to the polls? Well, we're going to talk about the results of that federal election, what to do with the opposition leader, and more as we move into a recap discussion of the week's big stories. Our Friday 4 roundtable is coming up next. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Friday 4 panel, our chance to dissect the week that was in the news and recap the big stories, the biggest of which, of course, our federal election. We'll spend some time diving into that with our guests this morning. Joanne McNeish, who's an associate professor of marketing at the Ted Rogers School of Business, Toronto Metropolitan University. Joanne, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Bob Verbanek is with us, a former journalist and editor, now an instructor at Conestoga College. Mr. Verbanek, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And David Marskell is here, the CEO at the museum in downtown Kitchener. David, I hope we left the building in good enough shape after our party last night.
You did, and I apologize that I wasn't able to come, but I had to attend Golden Girls at Center in the Square, which I must say made me blush a couple of times.
Oh,
they
good.
Were pretty, yeah, it was a great show. It was a great show. But I'm glad the kickoff last night for you and cystic fibrosis in the month of May was off to a good start. So thank you for choosing us on that one.
Thank you very much for the support. It meant a lot. And believe it or not, you can have a party without David Marskell. It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same, but we managed. All right, let's dive into this. We're going to spend the first couple of segments because I think there are a lot of branches on this particular tree, and I think we'll start the high-level way and what happened, obviously, Ottawa way. And Joanne, I'll kick it off with you just for general thoughts. I mean, what a swing in the polls from where the Conservatives were to where they ended up on Election Day. What's your take on what we saw?
So can I just say a personal comment? I love a tight election. I had to sit down in front of the TV starting around 6:30, watch all those poll close, tweet out to a bunch of friends who are all following it, different parties. It's fun when it's not decided in the first 5 minutes is the first thing. And I liked that as it went across the country, it mattered that different provinces voted in the way they did. The second thing that's just purely personal, I love a minority government. I think that, in fact, it does challenge the governing party to think through the issues and present it in a way that sort of, it's almost a sober second thought approach. So like the board of a company and then the president, there's a way for them to consider things. And the third thing was pretty much completely redid the Canadian leader landscape. I know Pierre Poilievre is going to try to find a seat, says he's staying on, but it's a bit of a shocker to say we will have to get to know possibly 2-3 leaders, and they will have to rethink their party platforms in a way that I think they got locked into dealing with Trudeau, and I don't think Trudeau really represented the Liberal Party anymore. So here's a brand new guy, kind of Barack Obama, never governed. Well, at least Barack had some experience in the Senate, but no leadership experience for a party, no governing experience, and now can say he did win his seat handily. So I'm actually re-energized with politics, and I usually love watching politics and what's happening. And I guess the final thing, I wonder if the Democrats had not had had a different person in the position of the Democrat, whether they could have overtaken Trump. Because didn't it feel very Trumpish? And I had my doubts about Carney winning this. I thought he'd be a bit of a Kamala. The polls showed one thing, and that didn't happen. But here's the situation that I think if the Americans want to know about Canadians, this was a Canadian election with multiple parties and lots of people running, lots of different political strategies. I'm not sure Pierre truly lost a seat as much as they put 100 candidates in there to divert all the attention. However, it's a reflection on his style, his leadership style, and the message he was presenting. So in that very lovely Canadian way, no storming Sussex Drive, no storming Parliament, just feet on the ground, poll by poll, seat by seat, voter by voter. So to me, just personally, and smarter people are going to speak about the deep knowledge of the parties, but I thought it was a lovely reflection that we can come together in unity and actually accomplish something, starting with a single vote. Vote, people. It matters if you vote. 19
million people did that. Cast a ballot, just shy of the 1993 turnout of just over 69%. We were just under 69 this time around. Bob Verbanek, your take on the new parliament?
I think what Canadians voted for was a coalition government. This is a coalition of all the parties now, and what they've basically said to Canadians have said to the parties in Parliament is where you have to figure out a way forward for Canada and figure out a way to work together for Canada. I think if it was a straight majority, maybe that messaging would have been a little different, but I think the minority result really suggests that they're looking for compromise and solutions, and real solutions, not just performative ones or empty promises. They're looking for ways to do some transformational things, because we're in a transformational age right now. If we haven't noticed, things have been changed. So we have to respond to that change, and I think that's what this election has really signaled. So, David Marskell.
Oh, baby, let's have a debate here today. I just thought this was such an interesting election on so many levels. The polls weren't correct. The disdain, much was driven by the disdain for Trudeau and then for Trump. And also Poilievre wasn't actually the knight on shining armor. It just, I do think it will be a majority in the next few days. I think they'll turn a couple of red Tories in Quebec or get Elizabeth May. They'll get 3 more over to make it majority. Normally, I like minority, but I think we need a strong mandate. That was the campaign that Carney went on. But I do think there must be negotiations going on, heavy negotiations, trying to move people across the floor. But having said that, I hope that Carney might do something like appoint a senator from Alberta, a conservative senator, to the cabinet, and try to bring the country together in other ways. I have lots of other ideas. I think Barda Shager would be a great Speaker of the House. I think we should all start that one and get her to be the Speaker of the House.
Bulletproof Bardish is what I call her now. Untouchable there in Waterloo. But David, you touched on something that I'm not overly comfortable with. I, like you, think that there will be an effort at minimum to lure a couple over into the big red tent so that it can be a majority. And we also have a conservative leader who lost his seat after 20 years. Pierre Poilievre loses his seat, and now they'll look for a safe seat for him to run in a by-election so he can remain in the House. Shouldn't there be a cooling off period? Am I the only one that's not comfortable with either of these? I know they're allowed. I'm not comfortable with either of them.
So I think, Mike, what you're really seeing is maybe the end of the NDP party on the federal level, and what people have said in this election was if we're voting for you in a coalition with Liberals, why don't we just vote for Liberals, right? So the NDPers who are there might look and say, is our party really an entity at the federal level now? And maybe we need to, what do they call it? When you're independent and you're convening with the party and leadership, that's what they're going to be doing, right? So I think the 7 NDPers from across the country are going to really have to think about, are we a legitimate national party right now? And do we have to maybe look in coalition with the Liberals?
Yeah. Okay, we'll pick up on this. Sorry, go ahead, David.
I mean, this is my point. Like, if we're going to have a minority government that's going to be run by the NDP, that they are going to be the swing vote, so they're going to get all the stuff they wanted, and they were voted out. That's why we need a majority at this time, in my opinion.
I was hoping for one too, but we'll pick up on this in a moment and get into some more of the local races. And how about the GTA turning some seats conservative? Joanne, we'll get your thoughts on that as we continue the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Joining us around the virtual table this morning, Bob Verbanek, David Marskell, Joanne McNeish. Let's talk about some of the more localized results. I know Bob and David will have some interesting thoughts on what happened in the region of Waterloo, but Joanne, GTA, the Conservatives, despite Pierre Poilievre not winning his seat in the Ottawa area, they turned some GTA seats blue, which we have not seen in a good long time. That's a sign of progress for the Conservatives.
It is a sign of progress. So there's sort of what I always think of the Toronto city. Within the city of Toronto, all but one seat went Liberal, and that's a pretty typical result for the city. And even in actually my own riding, what had been briefly held by the Conservative went back to Liberal, and that's pretty traditional. But the interesting story is what I always think of the band of areas around the city. They were very excited to win what is called like the 905 area count. So that's the seats that are around the city of Toronto. And I would say some of that reflects the work that Doug Ford has done. It's traditionally Doug Ford or Conservative territory. It also reflects some issues around crime. And so the tough on crime message did very well in those areas. And I just pulled out my phone to read, just in case people are aware of some of these areas. So Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, Newmarket, Aurora, Vaughan, Woodbridge, and then the one seat they won within the city of Toronto, York, which is Scarborough area. The other thing that happened in Toronto is we seem to do this all the time. I think someone's there whose job is just to keep redrawing the boundaries. Now, of course, that reflects population growth, but some of this was the incumbent was known to its electorate in part of the old riding, but then new areas were added on. So some of that meant that an incumbent was running half of an incumbent campaign and half of a new to the other group campaign. But it was an interesting story, and it does say that the Conservatives' message, particularly tough on crime for those areas, really got through. They also ran the right kind of candidates that were known in those areas. And as I said, the boundary changes really helped them out. What that means, though, in the long term is going to be interesting because Carney has adopted a number of the Conservative strategies. And so will he say, well, gee, that tough on crime message seemed to be successful in certain areas. How do we approach that? And again, I'm not advocating one approach or another, but where a message is strongly compelling, and Marco, we always say, if people bought that in certain areas or certain stores bought that kind of product, do we introduce it in other areas? Will it be effective in similar areas? So you're absolutely right. Toronto, again, was a bit of a nail biter, and some of these areas went back and forth as they did across the country. But again, I had to watch between, the national level and then come down into Toronto to really be able to keep up with my texting with everybody.
It was a fun election, to be sure, for that, in terms of how close some of the races were. We had a real tight race in Kitchener-Conestoga again, Bob Verbanek, and Kitchener Centre was incredibly tight. But what's your take on what we saw in the region?
Yeah, there was some definite surprises. I thought Mike Maurice had done enough constituency work and established himself locally enough that he might squeak it out again. But there was obviously a taste for some change, because we saw that in Cambridge too. Brian May had been there since 2015 as well, I think, and lost that what was had been a Liberal seat, and it's lost it to the Conservatives too. So I thought the races were a lot closer than people expected. Kitchener-Waterloo, the ridings around here are usually bellwethers for winners for both the national and provincial parties. So to see some of this change is maybe reflective of another change. I think one thing that came out of this election is that we've seen a demographic shift. Young people below Generation X and boomers, which most of us are in this chat right now, they supported Liberals, and younger generations went to the Conservatives. So that might be a trend for the future to watch, and it might explain some of the results we saw even locally. So
I found myself, David, surprised in Cambridge for sure. I thought Brian May was about as safe as could be. And then Mike Morris, I don't know that I've seen an MP in recent memory that worked as hard as he did and still gets the result, obviously, he wouldn't have hoped for.
Yeah, and it's the commission, like it's an independent body that redraws the boundaries. It's not a political job. And I think Mike got caught up in that a little bit. But I think Mike also got caught up in the Liberal split, the Green and the Liberal split, put the Tory candidate right up the center. I think she was more surprised than anybody that she had won. It'll be interesting where Mike pops up, what he does. Does he, if it is a minority government and stays that way, does he, keep his powder dry, as they say, and then come back? Does he try for regional council or some other provincial something? Because everybody has such a good response to the effort that he has done for an Indian community. There's a couple of other comments I'd like to make. There's a group called Civics with an X at the end, civix.ca, and they had high school students across the country vote. The Conservatives won 169 or 66 seats, and this is TikTok. They're getting a message over and over from It's very interesting. Civics with an X at the end.ca. And the young people are starting to move in that direction. My other point on this is, if I may, is that I think Trudeau went too far left, and everybody was woke, and it really resonated the other side of the spectrum. And Poilievre and the people before him have gone too far right. I think Carney will move right of center. I think he has to, and that will help appease Trump in some ways. But if the Tories are ever going to elect a prime minister, in my opinion, they need to move closer to the center. And maybe Doug Ford's taking those French lessons. We talked about this, Mike. I think Doug Ford's the perfect candidate for the federal Tories.
I brought that up earlier this week, and oh my goodness, did I get both barrels from the staunch Conservatives. He's not one of us, but I don't think you're that far off, David. David Marskell, Joanne McNeish, Bob Verbanek with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. We continue on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There was a contentious issue at our Catholic school board this week. It was described as a pride flag issue, but I think there was a lot more than that, including whether or not school boards are even staying in their political lanes. We'll talk about that. Also, the tragedy in Vancouver as we continue the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. That was a Leafs jersey on Bob Verbanek, one of our... Is it a Nylander? Oh, my gosh, it's a Nylander jersey, too. A couple of goals for Willie on his birthday. Yeah, baby. The Leafs big winners last night. And Dean wanted to hear some Maxine Nightingale right back where we started. Wonder why Dean wanted to hear that song today. Bob Verbanek with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable. Bob is a former journalist and editor, now an instructor at Conestoga College. David Marskell is here, CEO at the museum in downtown Kitchener. And Joanne McNeish, associate professor of marketing at the Ted Rogers School of Business, Toronto Metropolitan University. Willie Nylander, Bob Verbanek, I'll start with you on this one. It was positioned as a pride flag debate. I think there was a lot more to it than that at our Catholic school board this week. But your thoughts on the debate that happened and whether or not boards are even inserting themselves into areas where perhaps they ought not insert themselves.
Sure. I'm going to start with a premise I've floated for years. I think that school boards are redundant, should be eliminated. Since they've lost taxation power, they are just a make-work project. And they really do not do a lot in terms of setting local educational policy that's all set centrally at the provincial level. And this is just one of the reasons that they lost those powers is because the governments of the time thought they were becoming political incubators for some interesting views. And this might be an example of that, right? There has been a very pronounced minority movement in some of these boards to bring some people, ideological people in with some very distinct viewpoints. And this is maybe an example of that, where they want to have those social cultural arguments at a school board level and set them out that way. So I'm all for just getting rid of them all. Having it centrally, it's already the curriculum's already set centrally, funding and taxation's already set centrally. What do they do locally? They cause trouble like this.
I could not possibly agree more with that. In fact, I wrote something to that effect this week. And David, I know we have talked before about, I'm pretty sure, one publicly funded school board you and I are on board with. I wonder if you feel similarly about this with Bob and I too.
Yeah, no, I do for sure. I mean, school boards should be financially accountable and avoid the actions that will frustrate parents and students. And, they just keep getting themselves into it. They need to be transparent and all of those things. They need to be funded properly. For sure they need to be funded properly. But I am for one school board. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I don't disagree with Bob on the school trustees. I don't know how much they get paid. I think $20,000 a year or something like that.
It might even be less still. It's very modest. Yeah.
It's not.
It's not modest? In Toronto?
In Toronto. But I would say it's much more than you think it is. In fact, that would be a good line item to be checking. It's a fortune of money in salaries, unnecessarily. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, but it used to be low, and maybe in other areas it is. But in Toronto, the argument for MPs and everybody else, it's got to be a living wage. And I'm sorry, the kind of people at all levels we're attracting, which is just redundancy on redundancy, the money that could be put in schools should be taken away from people. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a great line. It's it's exactly what we're talking about. Where it's incubating unnecessary ideas. It's incubating unnecessary political movements and thoughts. It's incubating all these things instead of a dedication to education and classroom education, right? Which is what their role is supposed to be, right? They shouldn't be getting involved with these kinds of higher level policy arguments.
And when you think the levels of hierarchy, we have the teacher in the classroom, we have a vice principal, a principal, a board, so paid what we would call civil servants, so a group managing, and then we have trustees on top of that. And so why do we need all those people? Teachers, I would say that's the easy one. But remember, even principals and vice principals don't even ever have to have been in the classroom. They are now a separate group and hired separately. So why did we create all these divisions? And, often things come back to politics, but and we know the four boards came out of a political decision. So I don't know how you get the politics back out. I don't have a problem with people who actually do things. But what effect does a trustee have on a teacher in a classroom who is struggling with numbers and all the diverse things that you have to deal with, and everything from learning disabilities to trying to teach a kind of math that doesn't even work. So I guess the idea here would be we'd need to really look at education and say, what's it all about? But certainly all these levels are not necessary anymore. And it seems to me the Ontario, the provincial government has always driven the educational policy, but the time it filters down to teachers, I wonder if they actually hear what the intention was through all these other people. But that's in that magical world where I get to run the world and say, could we just clean up a lot of this extra people that we have doing? Not sure what they do. If I understood what they do, I might feel better about it. And by the way, one of my best friends is a trustee, so it's nothing against the people. It's about what is the function all of this serves now.
So why isn't Ford getting rid of them? There must be a political reason that he's keeping them there.
I'm wondering that too.
It's the straw man. He gets to beat up on them when he needs to make those education arguments, right? And then he's got great examples of the board in Brantford that goes to Italy for statues and stuff like that to use as an enemy of what's wrong in the education system, right?
Yeah, he is terribly good at what he does, eh? As a politician, God, he's good at managing the situation. But then you think of previous people, and I guess the idea would be there would be some sort of big backlash. But I'm not sure taxpayers would have such a backlash anymore. In other words, I'm thinking people really would like properly funded teachers in properly funded classrooms. And once again, if the stats are correct, the number of children is declining. So we're about to go through that period of, should we get rid of schools? At the same time, there's big signs in my area saying, don't plan to go to a school in this area. There are no places in the schools. So I get confounded by where are there too many students for the capacity and where are there not enough students for the capacity. So even I, who deal with stats, sometimes look and say the aggregate seems to pick one picture. When you get to individual areas or cities, it paints a completely different picture. But weren't the trustees supposed to be managing that? So you're right. This does come back to what could these do? Because I would say we still need some sort of administrative function. It's just the political part doesn't seem appropriate or doesn't seem to function properly anymore.
There's no question that it doesn't. And I would like to come back to, tying it into the idea that David Marskell and I agreed on some time ago, and that is one publicly funded school board for the province of Ontario. I think we could eliminate a number of these things along the way because there's a whole lot of duplication in there.
Yeah, we already have it. It's called the Ministry of Education.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Bob Verbanek, David Marskell, Joanne McNeish with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. We'll take a quick break, and when we're back, how to respond to what happened in Vancouver last weekend. Where do we go from here when it comes to treating people with mental health? This is the mental health issues, pardon me. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. With us around the table this morning, David Marskell, Joanne McNeish, Bob Verbanek. It is a story that has caught attention nationwide in Vancouver at a Filipino festival last weekend. A 30-year-old man is alleged to have driven his vehicle into a crowd of people, killing 11, wounding dozens more. And it raises issues around how we treat people with mental health issues in this country, because we have learned that this particular individual had many interactions with both police and and I'll use it in quotes here, system in the year leading up to this absolute tragedy. Something I think is important to emphasize here is that the vast majority of people who are dealing with even severe mental health issues are not a threat to either themselves or the public. But I think we get to have these conversations and then we start linking the two, and it's not necessarily a link we should be making. But David, I'll start with you with all of that on the plate already. It's a big issue, and I don't know how we go about tackling it, but where could we start a response here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a terrible, terrible thing that has occurred, and it's not the first time in Canada and certainly around the world. And unfortunately, the authorities can't protect us. They can't protect everybody. I mean, they can put large trucks or cement barriers or whatever in the way for festivals or whatever. But it's for me, it's kind of like the gun issue. Ban them at the beginning rather than incarcerating people at the end after they use them. Meaning, if there's mental illness related issues here, what can we be doing more at the front end to help them, to make sure that they don't harm themselves or others? And I know people are trying, but obviously there is times when we can do more. And if it's not mental illness, if it's an act of hatred, then we need to go to the beginning and better educate people and children and to be tolerant of others and new Canadians and actually celebrate what I have always said all of my life and heard from everybody that we're a multicultural salad bowl, and we celebrate that. But there's so much hatred right now in Canada and south of the border. So I don't know. We just need to celebrate and be more tolerant, and because we need the skilled workers, we need immigrants. We're the next Russia, the largest country landmass, and we need people to come here and help grow that prosperity. And plus, they're being persecuted or murdered or in war or whatever. So sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but my solutions are always at the front end, not after it happens.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, getting to root causes. Joanne, your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to apologize to David about the salaries for trustees. He was absolutely correct. I'm just apologizing to David.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, because I was wrong about the salaries, even in Toronto. And actually, the reason I chose to apologize as part of this story is that somehow one of the values of Canada was always that notion that, and I'm going to connect it in a second, but this idea that respect and politeness and generosity was part of the Canadian personality. And the idea that politeness is not necessary anymore is part, and so being explicit in our emotions, I think even regular people are slightly struggling mentally in terms of the confusion of how to behave. So in this particular incident, I agree with you, starting with putting up more barriers. When people wonder why the cost of security and policing is going up, is because now to do any event, you've got to drive up cement trucks. In Toronto, they drive up cement trucks on every street that you go to this area where lots of people are going to gather. So prevention afterwards. But I'm also thinking that this idea that people have free will to do whatever they want has also gone too far. So back to politeness. Somebody saying thank you and somebody saying you're welcome, that didn't used to be an intrusion on somebody. Asking someone on the subway to take their feet off the seat, you can actually get beaten up for asking someone to do that in its most extreme sense. So I think of an incident like this. He has been described to have several interactions with the system and police. However, the system is no longer allowed to deal with this person. In other words, we said we're going to release everyone in the community. They get free will to do whatever they want. And we can't do anything about it. And so now we've gone too far on everybody has a right to be in the community. No, you have a right to be in the community as long as you demonstrate civil behavior. This is not someone with one incidence of a problem, but someone who's been continuously a problem. And so there's different solutions I've heard floated, but the idea that we continue, and so this is a landmine issue. When we think of places where people planted landmines, we signed treaties worldwide to say we're no longer allowed to plant landmines, but by the way, we need to go and take them out and remove them and not allow them to be used again. So these people are landmines. They're all over the place, and they can go off in any second in a really scary sort of way. And again, I am super hoping this is not terrorism. The reports seem to suggest not. It seems to suggest mental illness. But I'm thinking the activists and lobbyists, that free will, you're allowed to do whatever you want, that's gone too far. And now we need to back up and say, for people who have had many interactions with the system, it's time to take a different approach. And parents are in despair. Parents of these children who are struggling say, I don't know what to do anymore. There's nowhere to go or do. And once they're an adult, there's nothing I can do. Imagine as a parent coming to that level of despair. So super radical approach, but can we do something different? Can a smart person in the mental health territory come up with, is it containment or removal or new kinds of pharmaceuticals? What's different that we can do than unfortunately leaving them on the streets and leaving them to make these kind of decisions? Like, how was he able to even rent or have a van if he's struggling so much with mental illness? That's the conflicting things that I don't quite understand.
All right, I want to give Bob a chance here too.
This is a product of 50 years of changed mental health policies. Like we went from institutionalization to deinstitutionalization, and what happened was we thought it was a cheaper and more humane model, but we didn't put any of the funding and supports in place. And the person involved in this case, I think, was set off on his path because I think his brother was murdered, and he had a mental breakdown because of this, right? So, he took that rage and displaced it, right? And the interactions he had with police were the self-harm reactions. He needed treatment that he wasn't getting. There's no places to institutionalize people like this, and I'm not saying that's the right approach or not, but there's no funding and supports for all of this now. We divested and we didn't reinvest, and we're the victims of 50 years of a policy of changing a model and then not reinvesting in the model. And the number one sort of indicator of poor public mental health is poor housing, poverty, those types of things. We already know what all the problems are. We just don't want to put the investment or supports in place. We don't want to make mental health as important as a heart attack or cancer care or all those other things. So until we do prioritize that, realizing it's as damaging an issue as any of those health issues, it is a health issue. It's a mental health issue. Just because it's invisible, sometimes it's a shame that we've left it underfunded for so long. And then we wonder why this happens. It didn't happen in isolation or in a vacuum. This is a culmination of all those things coming home and delivering those kinds of results we're seeing now. So it's a shame that, we can't just say it's a shame. We have to do something about it. That's the biggest problem now, is to say, hey, commit to something, commit to another model. What's the other sort of right model for people who are in crisis, and how do we keep them from, that crisis continuing on and creating other victims out of this tragedy like this?
I like your point, Bob, about changing the model and then not adequately funding the new model that was created. Really good point. And we'll have to leave it on that because we're fresh out of time. David Marskell, CEO at the Museum in downtown Kitchener, Joanne McNeish, Associate Professor, Toronto Metropolitan University, and Bob Verbanek, the instructor at Conestoga College. Thank you all very much for your time on the show today, and enjoy the weekend ahead.
Thank you.
Go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs, go. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Moments away from your update in the 570 News Center, and I would encourage you to call now and get in the queue for Free Phones Friday, because it's always a busy hour, open lines, so we can hear directly from you. That is coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom.
Talkback.
And thus we begin on a journey, the destination of which is unknown. You decide where we go in this 60 minutes, and sometimes you take us to really interesting, if not strange places. But I'm here for it. I'm that kind of guy. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. It is Free Phones Friday on Talkback. Give us a call. The phones are free for you. And Mike is going to start us off. Good afternoon, Mike.
Hey, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
I was hoping it was you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, yeah. This is
baby.
This is solid.
It's so good.
Did you hear Joe Bowen's call on Willie's empty net goal?
Here's the thing, Mike. Okay, I was so busy with the Farwell for Hire launch party that I couldn't watch the game, but I could still hear him all the way from Ottawa.
Oh, he was blowing a gasket, Mikey.
Blew a gasket. This is only round one, Mikey.
I know, but it's great, Mike. Good to talk to you. I'll talk to you in round two. Go Leafs, go, Mikey.
Go Leafs, go, buddy. Good to hear from you. What a great way to start. Tell you right now, good guy right there, that Willie Nylander. Celebrated his birthday yesterday, scored 2 goals. And I mentioned this at the start of the show. I told you so. I don't like to be the I told you so guy, but in this case, because I had received a rather concerned email from Dean after the Leafs lost Game 5, and all of a sudden their 3-0 series lead was 3-2. I said, hang on. And Dean was like, they do this to us all the time. And they do. And my buddy was giving me a hard time at the Farwell for Hire launch party last night because as we were partying and raising money for cystic fibrosis, we also were keeping an eye on the game. And when the score got to 2-2 in the third period, there was many a groan around the museum in downtown Kitchener where we were having our party. And my buddy was like, you should have seen him the other night because we watched the game together. Well, he was over. I just put the game on. He's not a Leafs fan, but that's one of his only flaws. Anyway, I was having a hard time, and I'm like, I knew they weren't going to win this fourth game. I knew they weren't going to sweep. Blah, blah, blah. The Leafs always do this. My buddy was giving me the hardest time. Anyway, the Leafs are through to the second round, and who knows? Maybe this year will be a little different. Something else that we talked about on the show earlier today, I wanted to bring up again here when we have the chance to maybe talk about it in greater detail and at greater length, because I received an email afterwards from Dennis. And here's the thing. I brought this up on the show earlier this week, and then that very same day I was driving home, and I feel as though the streets just, fate was with me, and the streets made the point for me. I got into this, like I'm starting to look, and I'm getting concerned. I really am, because it seems like every time I drive on a road, and I keep to, the few that I need, general same things every day, but I get out and about on weekends and stuff. When I'm out and about, it seems like every time I get to a new place, there's another bit of traffic calming that's been added. Maybe it's something as simple, if you will, as those posts that they put onto the street so it feels narrower when you're driving through them. Krug Street, I think, is River Road by Krug, I think, is an excellent example of that. Now that the winter's over and the plows don't need to get by, the little posts get back into the middle of the road there to make it seem narrower so you drive slower. I get it. But you got those things in so many places. You've got changed signs for speed limits on so many roads. You've got bike lanes installed. You've got wider sidewalks, narrower lanes for traffic. All these things. It seems constant. I'm starting to add it up in my head. And I'm into the millions without breaking a sweat here. And I'm just wondering if this isn't the sort of thing that we ought to be reconsidering, simply because, look, I know we need to go slower, and I know we don't want people being injured or certainly worse, killed on our roads. But what is the data that is supporting our efforts on the streets where we're putting the effort? That's the thing that we have to think about here. Where's the data that says 38 people were killed or injured on this street? That's why these vehicles need to be slowed down. I'll tell you what, I don't believe in my heart of hearts that data exists. And when I went home from work after talking about this the other day, I encountered 3 people, 2 older ladies first, and then a younger gentleman. They were all walking their dogs, and they were walking their dogs on the road. The two ladies that I pass first, and I see them. I'm not out there trying to run anybody down on the road, right? I'm going to give them a wide berth. I'm going to slow right down. I don't care if they're walking on the road. Don't bother me none. If that's where you want to walk, walk. Same thing. I turn the corner. There's a guy coming down the street walking, and where the ladies were, there was no sidewalk. Where the guy was, after I turned onto the street, there was a sidewalk. I don't know why he wasn't on it. I don't care. If you want to be on the road, be on the road. I prefer, as somebody walking, you stayed at the side of the road. But the roads are there for all of us. And I've been trying to make the point that on these quieter residential streets, nobody's out there running people down. Certainly nobody wants to run anybody down. So when these really unfortunate things occur, why are they occurring? Are people sadly doing really dumb things? Those dumb things to me don't seem to be. I'm racking my brain, but I don't think the data would support that the dumb things are people driving at a breakneck speed in the middle of the day when elderly ladies are out walking their dogs. Those ladies are not in danger walking on the road. We recognize that we're out there to share the road. So why are we investing all of this money in these specific places? Couldn't that money be put to better use? And as Dennis said when he emailed me earlier today, said he has seen the same thing in his neighborhood. He said if the city was serious, it would make the speed limit 40 kilometers per hour every road in the city. That means you, Westmount Road. That means you, Homer Watson. Because we understand the data that says if the vehicle is moving slower, then the injury will be less severe. Yeah, but what if nobody's ever being hit? Then what? So if you're serious, Region of Waterloo, just make every road a 40. Oh, you don't want to do that? Wonder why. But what's with all this money then? Is this honestly money being spent on virtue signaling? Oh, we're doing great things here and make our road safer. Road was safe before you put any traffic calming on it, I promise you. Now what? And can we get our money back? It's your Talkback Hour, Free Phones Friday. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. What an excellent request by Al on this All Request Friday here on the program. Little Kim Mitchell, little Geddy Lee put them together for a song called Battle Scar. Thank you, Al. My ears needed that. Let's get to the phones as Free Phones Friday continues. Daly, good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Great, thanks. How's it going with you?
Not too bad. I catch your show every hour when I'm on lunch, and I heard you talking yesterday about the same thing you're talking about today, which is just whether the region's spending the right kind of money in the right spots to control traffic. The one I'm having a bit of trouble with is they put in a 40 zone and a speed camera on Lobsinger Line by Martin's Family Fruit Farm.
Oh, I know.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around that little section of road there when there's a Mennonite school ways down the road, not even in the section.
Does the limit not continue like through the school zone?
No, it picks right back up to 80. And it's only like a little stretch right in front of the fruit farm. And I'm trying to scratch my brain as to why it's that little section. There's nothing going around there.
I'm pretty sure, Daly, that they're working, and Mayor Sandy Shantz in Woolwich is trying to get some sort of exception made or changes made so that we have rural speed zones and we can get rid of, because that Lobsinger's crazy right now, 80, 60, 40 on the same stretch.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's my opinion there, but that one kind of puzzles me when there's other spots that could use it a bit more.
Exactly. This is like, what are they doing here, Daly? What are they doing?
Exactly. Anyways, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Daly. Appreciate the call. Great to hear from you today. If it ain't making sense to us, how did it ever make sense to you. Tony, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing all right, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. The sun is shining a little brighter today that our Leafs advanced to the next round.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To your point there, I agree with you 100% with this whole speeding thing. I don't know about anybody else, but it's to the point where it's confusing. I've driven through areas where it goes from 50 to 40 to 30. You don't know if you should be speeding up, slowing down. It's just confusing, and to me, it's just a feel-good project. I mean, I agree to your point. Where's the data on this?
Exactly.
Why are they doing this?
And Tony, you know what? I'm going to give the city of Kitchener and its council credit because it pushed back. Speed cameras are a regional program, a regional initiative, and the city of Kitchener said the same thing. Well, if we're saying, and they said we want the data to support the need for this speed limit at this time of day or on this particular road. If we're pushing back on that, I want to know, honest to goodness, on River Road, where you have to drive between the little posts because it makes the road seem narrower and it slows you down. Show me why. Like, I don't care how much they cost. I don't think they need to be there. I just don't think they need to be.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And it's the same. Like I live up on by the Homer Watch, so my backyard goes on a Homer Watch, and that is, I mean, as we all know, I mean, there's nobody going 70. Nobody's going 80. It's 90 and up. And in the summertime, it's just crazy. You don't see any speed enforcement there. I mean, I don't think cameras are the way to go, but how about throwing the odd officer there? Just their presence there would probably slow people down. But I don't know, Mike. I just think it's a feel-good project, and I agree with you 100%. There should be data to sustain that. And I'm okay with school zones. I mean, we should all drive slower in school zones. I'm okay with that. But you're driving through some subdivisions. It's 40, it's 50, it's 30. You don't even know what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing.
Agree with you completely, Tony.
Thanks for the call, Mike.
Thank you. Good to talk to you today. Go Leafs, go. I'll just say this. Vision Zero, right? Somebody came up with the idea. It's great. It feels great. So we're going to spend money on it. Feel good. Feel good, Vision Zero. Kyle is with us on Free Phones Friday. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Well, don't even get me started on the roads. I see it all the time. Northfield Drive is now a 60 to a 40 with a camera, back up to a 60, then to an 80. Lobsinger is ridiculous. But I want to talk baseball because I'm going to the Jays game tomorrow. We're playing the Cleveland Guardians. And if that Vladdy doesn't get at least 4 homers tomorrow, he's not worth $500 million.
Settle down. Settle down.
I think Varsho, did you see his catch the other day?
I did see the catch the other day. Yes, I did.
That's $500 million right there.
Oh, okay, sure.
But no, I'm excited. I'm a little upset because of the weather. I thought it was going to be just a smidge warmer, some sunshine. But you know what? It's baseball season. We can't complain. So let's go, Jays, go, my friend. Have a great
All right, wait, hang on, Kyle. Hang on before you go.
Yeah,
real quick. How's your hair today?
I know.
Are you having a good hair day today?
You know what? I'm sorry. I was going to come, and then I realized last minute that I had a hair appointment.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just wondered if you're having a good hair day.
I'm having a very good hair. I have more hair than you.
So you're having a good hair day today?
Yes.
That's
why?
good. Okay.
I feel like, no, there's got to be more to this. You can't just ask me if I'm having a good hair day, my friend.
I just heard that some people couldn't make the fundraising party that I threw last night. Well, my beloved threw the party, but I was there too. And I just heard that some people might have had a difficult time making it to the party because, they needed to comb their hair or something.
It was a hair appointment. I had to get my hair done. Do you know how hard it is to find a good hairdresser in Listowel? I
have no idea how hard it is to find a good hairdresser because, you've seen me.
It was 6:45 was my appointment. I didn't get out of there until at least 8 o'clock, so I apologize, Mike.
That's all right, buddy.
Year, if you do it next year...
No, that's it. It's one time ever. That's
all
it.
All right, then I guess I'm not going to be able to get my plans around my hair appointment for your thing then. So, anyway, thanks, Mike. Have a good weekend, my friend.
You too, Kyle. Had to give him a hard time. If you missed the party, you missed a lot of fun. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Free Phones Friday, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Some people call me a bad apple. Well, I may be bruised, but I I still taste sweet. Some people call me a bad apple, but I may be the sweetest apple on the tree.
I don't believe you, Kyle. Not the Kyle that just called, but the Kyle that requested the song. I know. Kyle, you are a bad apple. You can think you taste sweet all you want. That's an All Request Friday request, though, for Kyle. Little David Wilcox and Bad Apple. Back to the phones. Free Phones Friday. Rory, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing, sir?
Great, thank you. And you?
Hey, no complaints for a Friday afternoon, my friend.
Attaboy.
I want to congratulate the Waterloo Region Record for the award that they received. And I'd just like to say in general, Mike, whether it's our local newspapers across the region, especially some of our smaller outlets, whether it be 570 News and your show in particular, or our friends over on television, transparency in local news and local stories and local issues is really important to us as a community. And, you know, I know there's a lot of talk of the value of the mainstream media, whether it's biased, whether it's not. But what's really important is that it exists, especially locally, because a lot of the local stories would never get told without these local outlets. And, you know, I look at a couple of big examples, especially with the Record. I don't know if you covered this one, Mike, but the grade, the terrible grade that the region of Waterloo received from a third party, they got a D for transparency in the budget process, which I think is really alarming. And, of course, you know, you look at something like the Wilmot land grab, which has been total lack of accountability, and up to last week with the soil erosion going into the local water streams. You know, the lack of transparency in our governments will continue to remain unaddressed if local media doesn't continue to thrive in our community. So,
Roy, I appreciate that, Roy. I got to run the news. Do you want to hang on or?
No,
okay.
Not at all, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. I'm so sorry, and appreciate the support for local media and the reminder that, yeah, you should be supporting it. Thank you for being one of those people. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Now they're planning the crime of the century. Well, what will it be? Read all about their schemes and adventuring. Yes, it's well worth the fee. So roll up the scene. How they break it.
Yuta wanted to hear some Supertramp on this All Request Friday. There's a little crime of the century for you. Imagine winning an election on Monday, and then today, Friday, let's call it even 3 days later, because you won the election Monday night. So on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday, you're like, it's over. I'm a winner. And then on Friday, you have a conversation with your wife and you say, you know what? I'm going to resign. That's what Damien Currick just did in Battle River, Crowfoot, Alberta, who won election on Monday and today said, I'm resigning. You know why? So that Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre can run in the seat in a by-election. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said he will hold that by-election as soon as possible when a seat becomes available. Well, Mr. Carney, over to you. Oh, some good times in federal politics. Free Phones Friday continues. Greg, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, just two things today. One of those just really quick. All Request Friday for the music is good. Is there any chance it could be the other days too?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
You can't have too much of a good thing, Greg.
Oh, yeah. Some things you can, but
okay. All right.
Especially music, because
good point.
I was going I might request some Bruce and some Rush for you.
Just Fridays, buddy. Get your requests in early.
Well, there's such a thing as too much of them, but no, anyways, okay, enough of that. But, okay, if you think about it, every time on your show, pretty much every day, something is tabled where you're saying, okay, I don't get it, or you're just at a loss, or whether it's one of your listeners presenting it to you, or you yourself. I think what we need is Mike Farwell Show Point 2 or 2.0, and basically have everybody who's making these decisions come in, be accountable, and let's hear these answers that leave everybody stumped on a daily basis to something so ridiculous out there. How's that sound?
All right. I can get behind it. We're going to get some answers, Greg. Don't you worry.
Yeah, it just seems like there's no accountability. Like, there's just so many questions. Everyone's saying, like, yeah, makes no sense. Okay, well, somebody made that decision. Get them out get them out of their hole, and here, account for it, and, shoot them down if necessary, and might get some actual changes to things that make sense around here.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate the call, and it was good to see you last night, Craig. Thanks for coming to the party.
Yeah, no, that was good. So, okay, well, keep in touch.
All right, we will for sure. And listen, there will, in my opinion, be changes to the speed camera program in the region with the way the townships are kind of pushing back and asking for a rural speed zone strategy. So I think they're going to sort that one out on their own. Some of this other stuff, though, I don't know why it started to occur to me, and I'm getting sour on Vision Zero, because I think they're putting it in the wrong place. You're putting the Vision Zero, which is no collisions that cause injury or death, in the places where there are already zero injuries or deaths. It don't make no sense to me, and I don't want more money wasted on it. Simple as that from where I'm standing. Anyway, let's keep going with Free Phones Friday. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Liberal Bob called in, was it yesterday, about, you referred to Paul from President Kyle. Now, I understand they're political dudes, but Andre, I've never heard him say
I know, that's what I said. I'm like, are you sure you're getting, like, what? What?
Yeah, I couldn't understand that. I've never heard of it. I know the one out west, though, always refers to him as Andrew. He's very political. Maybe
yes, Andrew hasn't called in a while. He called last week, but I hear him from him infrequently now. Yeah.
You should call Liberal Bob LB, because you got a couple other Bobs to call in, so just call him LB,
Good
Mr.
point.
Linebacker. But anyway, it's funny you mentioned that Pierre Poilievre thing about doing the by-election. I was just thinking about that, Mike. Does he even have a residence in Alberta anymore, or Calgary, wherever he used to live before?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. There's a big conversation right now about whether or not he should even have to leave the house of the official opposition.
Well, I mean, he could still be the leader. He can't sit in the House of Commons. He can sit in the gallery.
That's what I mean. But you asked if he has a house or if he has a place to live. I'm saying
a resident.
Yeah, but he could. The question is, could he still keep living in the residence of the leader of the official opposition?
I guess as long as he's still technically the leader,
right? So how do you campaign in crow's foot? And
I don't know
exactly. That's what. See how complicated this is, Terry.
I'm sure he can stay in the Ottawa area. I'm sure there's a seat out in Eastern Ontario he can run in, isn't there? I don't know.
You're asking the wrong guy. Yeah?
I mean, he can sit in the gallery and the Bob Uecker seats and use the binoculars to view, but I don't know if that's going to be any good. And Mike, I don't know about this Leafs thing, man. They had to sweat it out against a cupcake team like Ottawa.
Settle down, sweat it out. It was a 6-game series. You hold on, settle down.
Mike, they should have technically. They were all played in Game 2 and 3, the 2 overtime games that they won. So anyway, the Florida Panthers are a team built for playoffs, man. Like if they don't, boost it up a little bit, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Settle down.
Good luck to
Settle
that, Mike.
down.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Anyway,
keep saying it.
Mike,
have
a good weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, what were you going to say?
I said you keep talking. It doesn't mean I have to listen.
Hey, I'm just being a neutral observer.
Sure you are. Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
All right, Terry. You too. Free Phones Friday. This is how it goes on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Free Phones Friday. Let's go right back to the phones. Lisa, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I was on the edge of my seat last night, but...
you mean when Ottawa tied it 2-2 in the third? Lisa, if they made it easy on us, come on. What fun would it be?
We squeaked true, but that's not why I'm calling.
Okay.
You and Terry were talking a little bit about the election there, and I have a little bit of a bee in my bonnet. Like we've got this democratic, fair process for elections, but I did not hear until after the fact, and I did follow, I thought, fairly closely, that there was 91 candidates in Pierre Poilievre's riding because this group called The Longest Ballot targeted him. Now, to me, that seems a little to sound like elections tampering. 91 candidates in one riding on one ballot. I checked Mark Carney's ballot, and he only had 5 candidates in his riding. I don't know. That seems really, really odd that would be allowed. I know there's a process, and you can, if you have 100 signatures, you can register to be on a ballot. But I just think that's crazy. Like, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and
that happened in a riding like that.
I heard some of the follow-up from that, too. We touched on it briefly on the show when the ballot was released, and there was all these names on there, and some people didn't even know where Carleton was, which is very strange. But do you really, they wouldn't have gotten any votes, Lisa, do you think?
Well, but did that affect the final outcome in that riding, Mike? Like, how would you possibly know? If you're going to put 91 candidates on one ballot, there should be 91 candidates on every single ballot in the country. If you're saying that that's okay, then I think that should be changed. And the fact that it was Pierre Poilievre's riding that was targeted, but not Mark Carney's, I say that's suspicious. And
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
normally, I'm not normally a conspiracy theory person, but. And I didn't see that until I was on Facebook, and I thought it was a meme the morning after the election, so I had to go to work and look to find that. So, I don't know. It didn't seem like that was talked about much ahead of time.
It actually even got coverage on the CBC.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go. Not just Facebook, but the CBC, too. Anyway, I think your point's well taken, Lisa. Thanks.
Anyway, take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, you know what? That's a fair question to ask. Was Pierre Poilievre deliberately targeted by this longest ballot group, which is trying to make the point that we need electoral reform, which generally is a point I can get behind. I don't think this is the way to do it. And fun fact, the person, the genius, if you will, behind the longest ballot campaign, University of Waterloo. I believe he's still a student there. Don't think he's a grad yet. Just so you know. Joe, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mike. Listen, since Farwell for Hire campaign is back on,
yeah,
I know that TLC is a very generous contributor.
A very generous contributor, yes.
You know, I floated this idea last time, and I didn't think it went very far, but I'll give her a go again.
Okay.
For all of us TLC subscribers, what if we were to make a donation and they matched it with dog food?
So you're a TLC customer, and then you make a donation, and then they match. So you give $50, and they give you $50 worth of dog food.
I'd be totally down with that.
I see. Okay. What? Okay. You know what? I was talking with Eric Cudis, the owner, last night at our launch party. And he said, I need some ideas. Come up with an idea. Maybe I'll take him your idea, Joe. Can I tell him it was my idea?
I don't care.
Okay. As long as you get some free dog food.
I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I can contribute to the campaign and also get some dog food.
All right. All right, Joe. I appreciate it. It is the best stuff around, and they are an incredible family and a great local success story. They're just opening up a new facility there in New Hamburg. Gotta love it. You got to love what's going on at TLC Pet Food. And they are so generous in the community in general, and very much so with our campaign, Farwell for Hire. Chris, Free Phones Friday, over to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And you?
Not bad.
Good.
A little disappointed and sad that we lost Mike Morris as a Green Party representative.
It's a tough one to figure. He worked so hard.
And he's a good person. He works really hard locally. And I really would... I voted Green because I really wanted Mike... in power locally. But I didn't want specifically a conservative or a liberal. I'm not either party. I was going by who does the local politics, and I really would have liked to vote specifically for a leader, and not have Mike Morris get in on the back of that. I think we need to change the voting system so that we can have good local people represented in federal politics, and not and vote specifically on the leader by themselves. Not get in just by their party way. So it's unfortunate the way the politics went down. We're looking more like an American-style one-party, two-party system, whereas if we voted grassroots, we would continue having NDPs and the Green parties and, you know.
Yeah, I get you. And the phone's not great quality, so I'm going to let you go there, Chris. Sorry. But I think we might also be learning that some of those parties maybe Canadians aren't all that interested in anymore, or at least not right now. I'll squeeze in one more before the break. Ivan, I'm just going to warn you as you start. You're on a short leash today, sir.
No problem.
Okay.
I just wanted to call and congratulate your team last night. That was a good win. They showed some character coming back from, potentially losing that. And you saw the whole thing with Nylander, right? That he almost missed the game?
No, I didn't know he almost missed the game.
Yeah, so they handed in a lineup, and they put Alex Nylander instead of Willie.
Oh, my gosh.
The refs caught it just before the game started and said, hey, are you sure this is what you wanted to do? And they were able to correct it.
I saw a headline about a messed up lineup, but I didn't. Okay, well, there you go. It was meant to be.
Well, and for me, I had a double heartbreak on the same night with the Rangers losing, and then obviously my Habs losing.
Yeah, careful. I told you, you're on a short leash. Okay.
All right, Mike.
Thanks, Ivan.
All the best to the Leafs, then.
All the best to you. Thank you. Ivan called the Rangers postgame show. Or did I let him get through on this one? I think it was the Rangers one where I don't have the ability to get rid of you as quickly as I can here if you use the team that shall not be named. That squeaked by. I knew it was coming. It's Free Phones Friday. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The job is done. I go out. Another boring day. I leave it all behind me now. So many worlds away.
Little song called The Zoo by Scorpions, by request from Kyle on your All Request Friday. I always wanted to be a part of one of those radio morning shows that was a zoo. You know, the Q Morning Zoo back in a lot of shows were zoos back in the day. I never got to be in a zoo. Maybe I belonged in one. I have no idea. Trying to herd you cats is like being in a zoo sometimes. Jen, who is our board operator today, said, "Oh, you're saving the best for last." Yes, I am. I waited until the last call to hear from Grant on Free Phones Friday.
That's kind of funny. I'm going to say this theory. It's probably not true, but it makes me feel better. I'm going to make two comments. I bet you there's a rule that you cannot have 14 NHL drafts.
There is no rule. There's no rule.
I bet you there is.
No, there is not. I promise you. Is that the way you feel better losing to the London Knights because you think there should be a rule against how they build their team?
I bet you if we had those, they'd say, nope, you can't.
They would not say that, Grant. Stop it.
Then this other one is Paul played your Ranger game giveaway tickets, and because your Yahoo boss not willing to have tickets physically,
it's not. Grant,
he should give him a gift card. From Sociale. I would.
Okay. Well. Oh, Grant. That's why we save the best for last. Today is a digital world, and tickets, physical tickets, they don't come along very often anymore. We gave away tickets earlier this week. You had to have an email address. I'm sorry. I know it's tough, but there are prerequisites for lots of things. I needed a certain average to get into university. Otherwise, they weren't going to let me in. Wait a minute. I never got that average. No, I snuck it. I changed my own transcript I didn't do that either. It just felt boastful for a moment. Bottom line is sometimes there are prerequisites. Must be this tall to ride this ride. That's why I can't go on rides at Canada's Wonderland, okay? Because I'm not this tall. The Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot is pushing $24,000. You should get a ticket. You can do that at cf5050.ca. And after you do that, have a great weekend, okay? I'll be back on Monday morning at 9. My name is Mike Farwell.